In 1952, a letter arrived at Carl Jung's Zurich clinic that would shatter everything the pioneering psychologist thought he knew about the boundaries of human consciousness. A young woman, trembling as she spoke, described dreams that had been coming true with terrifying accuracy. She foresaw accidents, deaths, and meetings with strangers, events that materialized days or weeks later with disturbing precision. Jung, initially skeptical, began documenting her case with scientific rigor. What he discovered would lead him to write years later that the unconscious mind operates outside the constraints of linear time, a statement that cost him professional ridicule but opened the door to understanding abilities that mainstream science couldn't explain. Jung wasn't alone in his findings. In his extensive experiments with precognitive phenomena throughout the 1950s, he documented over 400 cases of individuals demonstrating what he termed temporal displacement of consciousness, the ability to access information from future events through dreams, sudden knowings, and bodily sensations that preceded hours, days, or even weeks. These weren't parlor tricks or wishful thinking. They were documented, repeatable phenomena that suggested human consciousness operates according to laws we barely comprehend. But here's what Jung discovered that will change everything you think you know about your own mind. These abilities aren't supernatural gifts bestowed upon a chosen few. They're latent capacities present in nearly every human being, dormant neural pathways that can be awakened through specific practices and recognition patterns. Modern neuroscience has now identified the biological mechanisms behind what Jung observed. From the somatic marker system that creates gut feelings about future outcomes, to mirror neuron networks that allow us to feel others' emotions as our own. The woman from Jung's files, she learned to harness her abilities through systematic training. Within 6 months, she could distinguish between anxiety-based fantasies and genuine precognitive insights with 73% accuracy. Her life transformed. The chaos of unwanted visions became a navigational system for making life-altering decisions with unprecedented clarity. Today, we'll examine the 9 unmistakable signs that you possess these same hidden abilities, and, more importantly, how to activate them safely and ethically. If you've ever had that spine-tingling moment when you just knew who was calling before looking at your phone, or felt an inexplicable urge to avoid a certain route that later turned out to be blocked by an accident, then Jung's discoveries aren't academic curiosities. They're explanations for experiences you've already had. Perhaps you've walked into a room and immediately sensed tension that no one had voiced, or woken from a vivid dream only to have elements of it unfold in their waking life days later. Maybe you felt drawn to call a friend at the exact moment they needed support, or experienced a sudden knowing about someone's character that proved accurate despite contradicting all logical evidence. These aren't coincidences. They're not products of an overactive imagination. According to breakthrough research in neuroscience and consciousness studies, they're signs that your brain is processing information through channels that most people have learned to ignore. The somatic marker hypothesis, developed by neuroscientist Antonio Damasio, explains how our bodies generate physical sensations, gut feelings, that guide decision-making by accessing patterns our conscious minds haven't yet recognized. What Jung called temporal displacement and what modern science terms predictive processing both point to the same revolutionary truth. Your consciousness is not confined to the present moment. Your nervous system is constantly scanning for patterns, probabilities, and connections that extend far beyond your immediate sensory experience. The question isn't whether you have these abilities. Research suggests that up to 85% of the population has experienced some form of precognitive awareness. The question is whether you're ready to recognize, develop, and ethically apply capabilities that could transform every aspect of your life. Principle 1. The Damasio effect, when your body votes before your mind. In the basement laboratories of the University of Iowa, neuroscientist Antonio Damasio made a discovery that revolutionized our understanding of decision-making. Using a deceptively simple card game, he found that participants' bodies knew which choices would lead to disaster a full 80 cards before their conscious minds figured it out. Skin conduct measurements revealed that people developed physical stress responses when reaching for bad decks. Their autonomic nervous systems were screaming warnings that their rational minds couldn't hear. This phenomenon, known as the somatic marker hypothesis, reveals that your body maintains a sophisticated intelligence system. Every choice you've ever made has been tagged with emotional and physical markers stored in your ventromedial prefrontal cortex. When facing similar decisions, these markers generate bodily sensations, tightness in your chest for no, warmth and expansion for yes, that guide you toward beneficial outcomes. The mechanism is more precise than any computer algorithm. Your vagus nerve, connecting brain to gut, processes 500,000 bits of information per second from your internal environment. This creates what researchers call interoceptive awareness, the ability to read your body's subtle signals before they become conscious thoughts. Sarah Chen, CEO of a Fortune 500 company, credits her success to what she calls somatic decision-making. Facing a potential merger worth $2.3 billion, all financial projections favored the deal. Her board was unanimous. But sitting in the negotiation room, she felt what she describes as ice forming in my solar plexus. Despite the numbers, she terminated discussions. 3 months later, an FBI investigation revealed that the target company had been manipulating earnings for years. The deal would have destroyed her organization. My body knew something my spreadsheets couldn't calculate, she reflects. That sensation of ice was my nervous system detecting micro-patterns of deception that my conscious mind missed. 3-7-1 Protocol. Before any significant decision, take 3 deep breaths, scan your body for 7 seconds, and ask one question. What does my body know about this choice? Notice physical sensations without judgment. Tightness, heat, cold, expansion, or contraction, each is valuable data. Practice daily with low-stakes decisions. Which restaurant to choose, which route to take, which project to tackle first. Build your somatic vocabulary by tracking decisions and outcomes for 30 days. You'll discover your personal body language of intuition. Principle 2. The Jung Paradox. Dreams that rehearse tomorrow. What Jung observed clinically, modern sleep research has now explained mechanistically. During REM sleep, your hippocampus doesn't just consolidate memories. It runs sophisticated probability simulations, creating what neuroscientists call offline replay sequences. Your brain essentially plays out millions of potential future scenarios, flagging the most significant for conscious recall. Dr. Aaron Walmsley's groundbreaking studies at Harvard show that dreams containing future-relevant content occur 400% more frequently before major life transitions. The sleeping brain, freed from the constraints of linear time processing, accesses pattern recognition capabilities that dwarf any artificial intelligence system. Here's what's remarkable. Precognitive dreams aren't random prophetic visions. They're your unconscious mind's highly sophisticated risk assessment and opportunity detection system running overnight batch processing on the problems and possibilities in your life. Marcus Thompson, studying architecture at MIT, experienced what he initially dismissed as a stress nightmare. He dreamed of being in his favorite coffee shop when the building's facade suddenly cracked and collapsed, sending glass cascading onto the sidewalk where he usually sat reading. The dream was so vivid and disturbing that he avoided the coffee shop for 2 weeks. On day 14, while walking past, he watched in horror as a construction crane malfunctioned, sending a steel beam through the exact window where he typically sat. The impact created the cascade of glass from his dream. His unconscious mind had processed subtle visual cues, micro cracks in the building's facade, the unusual crane positioning, wind patterns, and computed a catastrophic probability that his sleeping brain delivered as a warning dream. Dream bridge technique. Keep a notebook and pen by your bed. Upon waking, before moving or opening your eyes, ask, "What did my dreams want me to know?" Write immediately. Even fragments matter. Dreams fade within 90 seconds of consciousness, but captured elements often prove remarkably prescient. Track 3 categories: warning dreams, potential problems; opportunity dreams, emerging possibilities; and pattern dreams, recurring symbols that represent personal meanings. Review weekly for connections to waking events. Principle 3. The Rizzolatti Revolution: Mirror Neurons and Emotional Contagion. In 1996, Italian neuroscientist Giacomo Rizzolatti made an accidental discovery that revolutionized our understanding of human connection. While studying motor neurons in macaque monkeys, his team noticed something extraordinary. Certain neurons fired both when a monkey performed an action and when it merely observed another monkey performing the same action. These mirror neurons revealed that our brains are hardwired for experiential empathy. We don't just observe others' emotions, we neurologically simulate them in our own neural architecture. This creates what researchers call embodied cognition, the physical experience of others' mental and emotional states as if they were our own. For highly sensitive individuals, mirror neuron networks show significantly increased activity. fMRI studies reveal that empaths process social and emotional information through expanded neural pathways, creating what amounts to a sixth sense for human emotional landscapes. Linda Martinez, working in a trauma therapy center, began experiencing inexplicable emotional crashes that coincided perfectly with her most distressed client sessions. After particularly difficult days, she would go home feeling suicidal despite having no personal reasons for despair. She was absorbing her clients' emotional states through hyperactive mirror neuron networks. The breakthrough came when she learned to distinguish between her emotions and absorbed ones. "I realized I was like an emotional sponge with no boundaries," she explains. "Once I understood the mechanism, I could work with it instead of being victimized by it." She developed what she calls empathic protocol, specific practices for emotional hygiene that allowed her to help others without losing herself. When experiencing intense emotions, pause and ask, is this feeling mine or am I absorbing it from someone else? If the emotion doesn't connect to your personal circumstances, practice the release protocol. Visualize the emotion as colored energy leaving your body with each exhale. Develop daily empathic cleansing routines. 5 minutes of conscious breathing after social interactions, brief nature contact to recalibrate your nervous system, and energy boundary visualizations, imagining a protective membrane around your emotional field that allows love in while filtering out others' distress. Principle 4. The Synchronicity Principle: When reality responds to consciousness. Jung's concept of synchronicity, meaningful coincidences that lack apparent causal connection, initially faced scientific ridicule. However, quantum physics has revealed that consciousness and physical reality interact in ways that make Jung's observations less mystical and more mechanical. Research shows that individuals in states of internal coherence, when thoughts, emotions, and intentions align, experience synchronistic events at rates far exceeding statistical probability. This suggests that consciousness doesn't just observe reality, it participates in its unfolding through mechanisms we're only beginning to understand. The key insight: synchronicities aren't random gifts from the universe. They're indicators that your inner state has achieved sufficient clarity and focus to participate consciously in the information field that connects all events. When your inner compass points true, external reality seems to reorganize itself to support your authentic direction. David Park, facing a career crisis, decided to trust what he called the cosmic breadcrumb trail. Over 7 days, the following occurred. He randomly picked up a business magazine in a waiting room that featured an article about exactly the type of company he wanted to work for. The next day, sitting in a coffee shop, he overheard a conversation about that same company needing someone with his precise skills. Following the breadcrumbs, he researched the company and discovered the hiring manager was speaking at a conference the following day. He attended, introduced himself, and was offered an interview on the spot. 1 week later, he had his dream job. It was like reality was conspiring to help me, he reflects, but I had to show up and follow the clues. Practice the coherence protocol. Each morning, spend 5 minutes aligning your thoughts, what you want to create, emotions, genuine enthusiasm for that outcome, and intentions, commitment to taking aligned action. This internal coherence creates what researchers call a synchronicity field. Maintain a synchronicity log. Record meaningful coincidences, noting your internal state when they occurred. Look for patterns. What thoughts, emotions, or intentions preceded the most helpful synchronicities? You'll discover your personal formula for attracting supportive coincidences. Principle 5. The atmospheric intelligence. Reading energy fields. While mainstream science doesn't recognize energy fields around people and places, research in environmental psychology reveals that highly sensitive individuals process significantly more sensory information than average. They detect micro changes in electromagnetic fields, air pressure, humidity, and subtle chemical signatures that create what they experience as different energies. Studies show that interoceptively aware individuals, those skilled at reading their own bodily sensations, also demonstrate enhanced environmental perception. The same neural networks that help you sense your internal state also help you detect external changes that others miss entirely. What feels like reading energy is actually advanced pattern recognition. Your nervous system integrating thousands of subtle environmental cues into an intuitive assessment of safety, opportunity, or emotional tone that your conscious mind receives as a felt sense. Patricia Gonzalez has sold real estate for 20 years with an uncanny ability to match clients with properties. Her secret? She reads what she calls house energy. Walking into a home, she immediately senses whether it will serve a family's needs, not based on square footage or amenities, but on atmospheric qualities. Some houses feel tired, others feel nurturing, some feel anxious, she explains. I've learned that when I get a warm, expansive feeling in my chest, that house will make my clients happy. When I feel constricted or cold, there are usually hidden problems, sometimes structural issues we discover later, sometimes just an incompatibility between the family's energy and the space. Her accuracy rate is remarkable. 94% of her sales result in clients who still love their homes 5 years later, compared to an industry average of 67%. When entering any new space, pause for exactly 5 seconds and notice your body's response. What's your immediate physical sensation? Light, heavy, warm, cool, expansive, constrictive. Record these impressions and check them against later experiences in that space. Practice the people reading protocol. In social situations, before engaging in conversation, spend 10 seconds sensing the person's atmospheric signature. What physical sensations arise in your presence? How does your breathing change? This pre-verbal assessment often proves more accurate than verbal exchanges in gauging trustworthiness and compatibility. Principle 6. The precognitive reflex. When time bends forward. Recent experiments in quantum biology reveal that living systems can access information across temporal boundaries through mechanisms that classical physics cannot explain. Studies by Dr. Julia Mossbridge demonstrate that human physiology shows measurable responses to future emotional stimuli 2 to 10 seconds before those stimuli occur. This presentimitant effect suggests that consciousness operates according to quantum rather than classical physical laws. Your nervous system appears to be constantly scanning probability waves, detecting the most likely future outcomes and generating bodily responses that manifest as hunches, urgencies, or sudden knowings. The mechanism involves what physicists call retroactive wave function collapse. Future events sending information backward through time to influence present moment awareness. While this sounds like science fiction, it's been replicated in laboratories worldwide with statistical significance that rules out chance. Rachel Stevens, a paramedic with 15 years experience, learned to trust what she calls her precognitive alarm system. During routine calls, she occasionally experiences sudden urgency to check unexpected locations or prepare for emergencies that haven't yet manifested. On a seemingly routine transport, she felt compelled to pull over and check her patient's airway, despite normal vital signs and no apparent distress. Within 30 seconds of stopping, the patient went into cardiac arrest. Her inexplicable action saved critical minutes that proved life-saving. "I can't explain it scientifically," she says, "but my body knows things before they happen. I've learned to act on those signals immediately, even when they contradict standard protocol. My intuition has never been wrong about genuine emergencies." Implement the temporal scanning technique. Before starting your day, sit quietly and scan forward through planned activities. Notice any physical sensations, emotional responses, or subtle knowings about potential challenges or opportunities. Record these impressions and compare them to actual events. Practice the decision point protocol. When facing choices, visualize each option as if it's already happened. Your body will often respond differently to various scenarios, providing information about probable outcomes before you've gathered all the logical facts. Principle 7. The Clair spectrum. Multiple channels of expanded perception. While popular culture often sensationalizes psychic abilities, research reveals that expanded perception manifests through specific, trainable channels that researchers term the Clair spectrum: clairvoyance, clear seeing, clairsentience, clear feeling, and claircognizance. These aren't supernatural gifts, but enhanced versions of normal sensory processing. Neuroimaging studies show that individuals reporting Clair experiences have increased activity in sensory processing regions and enhanced connectivity between different brain areas, allowing them to access subtle information that typically remains below the threshold of conscious awareness. Each person tends to have a dominant channel through which expanded perception flows most readily. Identifying your natural channel allows you to develop these abilities systematically, rather than waiting for random occurrences. Dr. Catherine Williams, a neuroscience researcher studying consciousness at Stanford, has documented her own multi-channel experiences. As a clairvoyant type, she receives information through sudden visual images, symbols, scenes, or metaphorical pictures that provide guidance about complex situations. During my divorce proceedings, I kept seeing an image of two paths diverging in a forest, with one path leading to sunlight and the other disappearing into darkness, she recalls. I initially dismissed it as stress-induced imagery, but the symbol proved remarkably accurate. The sunlight path represented the collaborative approach that ultimately led to an amicable resolution, while the dark path would have been the adversarial legal battle my attorney recommended. Her colleague, Dr. Mark Rodriguez, processes information clairaudiently, through internal phrases, words, or even complete sentences that arise spontaneously during problem solving. "It's like having a consultant in my head who speaks in complete, grammatically correct sentences that I would never construct consciously," he explains. Use the channel identification exercise. For 1 week, pay attention to how guidance or insights arrive. Do you see mental images, clairvoyance? Hear internal words or phrases, clairaudience? Feel physical sensations or emotional knowings, clairsentience? Experience sudden understanding without sensory input, claircognizance? Once you identify your primary channel, practice daily exercises specific to that modality. Clairvoyance can practice symbol meditation. Clairaudience can work with inner listening exercises. Clairsentience can develop body awareness techniques. And claircognizance can practice accessing direct knowing through stillness practices. Principle 8. The Nature Amplifier. Environmental enhancement of perception. Research by Stanford's Gregory Bratman reveals that 90 minutes in natural settings produces measurable changes in brain activity, specifically reducing activity in the subgenual prefrontal cortex, the brain region associated with rumination and mental noise.